Hi there, this is Wes. Okay, we're going to, this is the lab, and today is the 28th. We're going to talk about a few things here about the project and also creating activity diagrams again and sequence diagrams. Okay, so I'm going to share here. Okay, here, that's what I think. There we go. So we're going to first talk about building your project model. And so here's kind of a process I've kind of laid out so everyone can kind of go through this at the same time as we're building, so everyone kind of knows what the steps are. Based on the detailed information we've talked about in the particular, each of the types of diagrams, how do we put them together into a model? So to gauge how we're going along the maturity of the model, this is the two things we should be focusing on. First of all is the depth of the model, starting from the context level, the level 0, down to whatever level you go to, okay, in your model itself, your system of interest. And here is a breakout of the breadth of your model, depth and breadth. So here's a layout of the basic activities for developing your system model. And so first of all, you want to plan for the modeling effort. In other words, you want to get your material together, you set your goals, set your, how do you know, what are you investigating, why, what's the problem? And then I've got a sample outline for that for you guys. So that's going to help you develop the scope for your model. That's how you know when you're done, okay? And we're going to be fairly high level. I'm not looking for you guys to go deep because my goal is to make sure you basically know what each one of these processes is and understanding the difference between, okay, I've got a level 1 architecture and now I'm going to get down to the system level and system components and then those elements below that to some point where you're going to stop. Okay, because you've gone low enough. You don't need to break it down anymore because you can either build it from that specification, those descriptions, or it's enough information you can hand off to a contractor or a department like electrical or a fabrication or something. So, and over here is your plan of planning, setting up your model, and we'll talk again about this today. And then this parallel effort here of both analyzing your mission and stakeholder needs, doing analysis, and then maintaining your requirements and traceability. A lot of people use doors and some of these other tools or spreadsheets to really manage their requirements because they have to easily collaborate with the users. But you really need at least high-level requirements within your model so you can allocate them properly within your integrated model to your mission components, your system components, both the structural and the behavior. So again, you can pull the thread on requirements and see what behaviors are being supported and what systems support that behavior, and then what are the test cases, that are going to test the system components that you develop. So, and then there's this perform analysis. This is maybe where you do simulation, do some analysis, some trade studies, and you'll document some of these things in your model, including parametric diagrams could also help you do that analysis. And then the last thing, when these three things you think are done, you're going to, or some cycle, you're going to do integration and verification of the system, okay, at the very end. Okay, so this obviously could be a repeat process at different stages of development of your system. Okay, so right now we're about here. We should be setting up the model. We've got our group set up. We should be defining what that is, and then we can start doing some context level diagrams at this level 0. We'll talk a little bit about that here. So here's kind of the outline For your PDR guidelines, you don't submit this, but it should give you some ideas for developing, you know, for your starting model that you're going to present at PDR. Okay. So this is posted. This document is out on the in one of the modules. Okay. So here you're going to define the and so you may have this on your slides when you do your presentation. Here's my project problem. Okay. And then here's my level 0 views, which would contain, and this is what we're going to start working on first, level 0. Okay, some kind of context views and diagrams, but not using PowerPoint, but using block description diagrams and internal block diagrams, IBDs, to come up with some context diagrams. Use cases are also can be at that very high level. Okay, what are the common uses? What are the main features, functionality, and who are those stakeholders and actors around in those use cases? So it should come hand in hand with this context diagram. And then once you create these use case diagrams, you can now link activities, diagrams, sequence diagrams to these use cases, okay? And do some, what are your high level, you know, user requirements, okay? What are the shell statements? You can put those in your model, okay? Start those, but you can start collecting them. You don't actually have to put them in the model yet. Also, list is supposed to be of. Users and stakeholders. Let me fix that. It's one of these things that drives me crazy. Lists. I believe in fixing these things before I forget them. There we go. Okay, so we'll go back to view here. Yay, okay. List of constraints. Okay, guidelines, controls, and also what are the inputs and outputs. Also, you put in the context diagram, or similar to an IDEF, but again, you can do it in your IBD and BDD. And also, we can review the PDR assessment slide. So there's a slide out there, you can do that. So these are some things, projects, some of the items we're going to be working on here. Okay, so here we are developing at the context level, okay? So this is high level, this is your actual architecture down here, so your system. So let's not worry about that breakout quite yet. And so some of these diagrams are going to be really in this process. Once you do these two things, you can start this analysis. So I'll step you through these procedures today, okay? So again, the context view is use cases, block diagrams at level 0, use case scenarios for activities and sequence diagrams, and reviewing your requirements. Okay, so here's a level 0 use case from our book, from the Forest Fire Detection Architect and Spacecraft with SysML by Sandy Friedenthal and Christopher Oster. So here's the frame for the use case. Now you notice there's only, you know, there isn't 60 of them here, but what are the main features? Here's a stakeholder, or an operator, so it could be the user, but these are just stereotyped. You don't have to have this stereotype on there if you don't want to, you don't need it. So here is the primary user, and this is really the primary use case, provide forest fire near in real time, okay? And then obviously the forest, right, so this is containment here. So this is what this sign, and it says include. So I take that back. It looks like this is indicating that this is the main detection and monitor forest fires for U.S. and Canada Social region. So that makes this the primary where this is included, okay? And then these are two separate use cases run by the operator, both archiving and monitoring the health and safety of the satellites itself, okay? So this is the main actor. I guess a little less there is for stakeholders. So in Cameo, you can do this. I don't believe you can do this in Integrity Model. I just want to clarify too that This class is basically on the language SysML. This is not a tool class, unfortunately. I'm trying to give you the best knowledge I can on the tools, but we're going to have to work together on some of these implementations for these tools of actually how you do it. So, because it'll be different between each tool. So, and this is where you'll find, okay, I like this tool better than this because maybe it does it's simpler. Normally, you don't see this containment symbol here. Normally, it's just a line. So this is really, I don't know how that got thrown in there, but you know, it's got include on. That's the main thing. So again, these tools aren't perfect, so we'll just have to kind of work around that. So normally you don't see that, but it means the same thing. That include means sort of include means that this is mandatory for that. Okay, so this is the kind of use case I want you guys to develop for your product. 2 or 3 use cases and some stakeholders. Now, and based on this, you can start coming up with defining in a block diagram, a BDD, your mission context. So you create a block diagram, and you can either start creating or drag and drop these if you've already created the blocks in your model, and start creating these connections basically. So this is your context level. Now it looks a little bit different, meaning that it's basically defined that all these things are a part of the mission context, and it's showing that. Normally on a context diagram, you would see your spacecraft down here, which is the focus, okay, and everything else. So this actually shows you 10 times more information that we normally show on a PowerPoint, but it's basically trying to show the same thing of composition, let's say. So this is really the composition of the entire domain, which includes the mission enterprise, representing the spacecraft, the launch vehicle. So this is if this is your system of interest, this is showing, oh yeah, here's the things a part of the mission enterprise that are important to it, okay? And so this is just showing composition, where this whole mission context is also bringing in the fire department, the earth, the environment, okay, and its composition, GPS, okay, space environment, included, and notice it's not even connected in here, but off to the side here, it's still on here, is orbit. That this whole concept of orbiting is treated like a block, okay? Because look at all the values they're defining. They probably need these values for doing calculations, and for the spacecraft needs this. So, and yes, there's a dotted line here, orbited press. So this is a comment why this is here. So that's really good, because now you look at this, oh, okay, I get the big picture. Even to the point where you got the sun in here and star for the space environment. So, so this is, let's say, part of the context diagram that we would normally do, because this is all the pieces and parts, but it doesn't show you necessarily the relationships to spacecraft. So if you went down to, so here, oh, here's another BDD of the same thing, except this time there's 2 spacecraft. One is this system of interest. In other words, it's a very high level view of using where they've defined orbit as one, versus, so this is like the physical spacecraft, where this here is the system of interest again, spacecraft, but it's more the physicality. So they've actually separated this 2 separate blocks. They're both parts of the mission enterprise, and also there's some multiplicity here where there's not multiplicity. And then down here, they have this relationship here showing how they're related. So that's interesting. So basically, it's the same diagram as this one, except they added that. So this is also in the model that you can download. So you guys have access to this model. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so here's the IBD that's in the model for the satellite system. Again, this is really more of the context diagram that you would think, except it's in a model form, not in a PowerPoint form. So you've taken all these elements that you had here and say, okay, how are they connected and relate to the spacecraft? So just like in the context diagram. Here's the system of interest. And they have these relationships here to all these external things, whether it's a space environment, GPS, the Earth, okay? And all these things are telling you, oh, why do I care about this? Well, I guess and of course they're defining all these objects now within spacecraft, like thrust. So this is a very detailed, good example, more detailed than you really need for yours, but this shows you the capabilities, and this is using Cameo, okay? You should also be able to do this with Integrity Modeler. It may not look quite the same, but it should convey about the same amount of information, okay? So here's all the ports that they've defined on here. So these are defined in, like in the other view here, where it says size, power, delta V, under spacecraft physical. So you should see similar things over here. So they got impact, mechanical. Okay, so a lot of things, and they don't have to show everything on your diagrams. You can just show what you need. Okay, and they've added comments here. So the lines, just like in your context diagram, have information about, and it also has direction here too. So that's good, just like in the other one. So, and then adding comments here, like anything with this little dog-eared is a comment that they put in. Okay, down here is to add more information. Okay, you notice they has the little jump capability. This is a dashed line, so it looks a little incomplete, but that's okay. Here's some bidirectional type stuff. So, okay, pretty detailed. Here's the sequence diagram, the SD, which is an interaction example. Okay, and this is on orbit data distribution events P. Okay, so that's the interaction that's being defined. And then here they actually put a couple links in here to other related sequence diagrams. So this is one way, and I believe you just kind of drag the graphic and you just drop it right on the diagram and it'll put this link there for you. So in the model, you can actually go to one and then go back and forth. Okay, so here's an example of the lifelines. Okay, they have the user over here. I normally like to have the user over on this side, but you know, obviously this was their preference. Again, it's up to you. I just want to make sure a lot of times having the user is very important because they initiate a lot of these sequence diagrams or have some involvement, right? So like here, he's not involved till down here where data distribution to end user is sent to him. Okay. So notice sometimes they have these start indicators here. It just says 1 here and time's going down this way. And so here's a parallel process. So this is a loop. Here's the guard, okay, that we talked about in class. And then this has a number 1 by it too. So they're showing sequence numbers here in each one of these things. But normally it always flows. I mean, mandatorily it flows down. So it executed now. A loop just means it executes until some condition, you know, orbit 1, orbit final. Okay, so it's looping based on this guard, and here's a parallel. So these things are simultaneously working, both these regions, so you got the block. This is why they're a little bit hard to read. So you got this loop here, so this is looping, and then inside the loop there's 2 parallel processes, okay? And then these are reference blocks, meaning that these are separate sequence diagrams. So here's spacecraft timeline, okay, and spacecraft timeline, okay. So it looks like with different parameters, this sequence diagram is working. Interesting, okay. And then you should be able to just double click on these. Okay, and when the loop is done, based on the orbits. So whatever orbit 1 is, these are variables. So whatever that variable is, generally could be 0 or 1, I guess. And then final is, let's say they determine we're going to do 10 orbits. So maybe that value is 10. We don't know what that is, but so then it's going to fall out when that loop's done. So these two are going to happen in parallel to they're done, and then it's going to loop back. Let's see. And then here, this last thing after the parallel is done, it comes here, sends this out, and then it loops in. Then when it falls out of the loop, it comes down here to end data collection. Okay, so it looks like ground station here is sending some kind of a signal to space station to end. Obviously, then this sequence is done. So there's a good example of an SD from our sample text. Okay, then there's some other references down here from the textbook. Okay, so here's a high-level activity diagram. You notice this one is high level, so what's unusual about this is obviously just flowing left to right, which is fine. You could have had multiple swim lanes if you wanted to, going left to right or up and down, but this one is just going across, because these are the high-level operations, perform mission. So this is a really good picture to show that from a, let's say, so you have a use case as perform action, then you can put a link to that, to this, you create the use case, right-click on the use case, and you can create a new activity diagram, and then define this, and then these are predefined activity diagrams already created of, let's say you got one of launch, you got another activity diagram of separate, another, so here this is a fork here, so this is starting, so your token is starting this one, and then this one, and then when this is done, this one starts. And then here's another fork, so there's a fork and within a fork. So these will start when this is done. This one is still operating, okay? And then when that's done, it goes to a fork, and then this one. Now here's a region, it's called an interrupt region, this little kind of a rounded corner dashed line you can put in there. So what this is saying is when this completes, it's going to go to this activity, another diagram, separate diagram because of the fork means, and it's going to send a message, end data collecting. Okay, at some point, that message is going to be sent. Okay, and so it's going to provide, and then it's going to end data collection. And boom, it's done. So it looks like, so this would end this thread. This doesn't end the activity because this is not the, this is just meaning this thread is ended, okay? And, but, so when this one is done and this one's done, these two, when both those are done, it will finish this perform mission. Okay, so think about this. Now, you don't have to do it horizontal. Horizontal is not bad for this kind of diagram, or you can do it vertical, okay? But it's, notice they're high-level processes. If you want to just make a, what you can do is you can create these low-level ones and basically have, if you haven't defined yet what launch is, you can create a dummy one and then just link to it so you know you've got to work on that. Okay, that's one way around it. You can create these activities, separate activities, okay, and then create diagrams for them. And then when you do the call, this is a call. When it calls this, you set a call, you link to that dummy one. And then, so you can set up the structure and, but then, so this is really like the next level of decomposition. So this would be like level 0, turned to the high level. And then level 1 would be where you break down these things at the next level. So, okay. Let's see, that concludes that portion. Here's some examples. Let me see. Let's go through Integrity Modeler here real quick. If you have any questions, you can always go to help. Here, I'll slide this over here. I was looking up the definition between binding connectors versus regular connectors, and you can call up especially if it's not in the text. And this is more specific to this tool, how it uses it and what it looks like. So there's this content where you can look up SysML diagrams and tables. If you're interested in internal block diagrams, you can look up here, and gives you a lot of good information, okay? So this is another real good source, which is more specific, but then the search works pretty well. It gives you obviously a lot of choices sometimes. I always look for the SysML solutions here because this does support like the simulation and model or some other general things. So usually the answer I'm looking for, so like here is binding connectors, and it highlights all the place it puts it in. So that's pretty good. Okay, so let's go through a model real quick. I'm going to minimize this one. Let's go to Integrity Modeler here. So here's my model for 2020. Let's see, which one do I have open here? This is version 0. This is the lab model. If I have this model open, in fact, let me make a new version of this. I'll show you guys how to do that for Integrity Modeler. So I'm just going to close this for now. And I guess that's another one. How many versions do I have here? Well, let's just go to the diagram. Let's just close that. Okay, so here's lab model. I'm going to right click on this. This is version 0. I'm going to create, so I'm going to like baseline this one. I'm going to make some changes. And I'm just going to say new version. Okay, this will create a new version. This will create a new version 1. Okay, so now this one has a little lock symbol on here. Okay, that's that little yellow thing is. And so this one now is frozen. So can I always go back to that one if I screw something up. Okay, so I clicked on 1. A lot of times if you can't do anything, you open a model and you can't open anything up, it's probably because you're in a locked version of it. So this one is not locked. There would be little locks on here. So, so I'm going to go into, let's see, my missions satellite context again. So I've got a couple satellites. So here's my Dell. Okay, but if I want to create a new model in here, or a new folder, okay, as an example. So we've stepped through how to make a new model. Let's say I'm going to create let's say this is your new model. You create a new package, and this is the tank. Okay, it's my other system here. And I'm going to right click on that. So there's nothing in it. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to create a new package for my context for the tank. Okay, so if you notice down here at the bottom here, it says full name, it says tank context, and there's like 2 double things. So this is kind of like a namespace. This is something that's holding content. So first thing, I want to start working on my use cases and my ID. Okay, so let's do a right click on my context, and I'm gonna create a new, let's say, a use case diagram. Okay, SysML, and you go to use cases, and here's use case diagram. So you see that whole path there? Okay. So it all given me a name, package, context 1. That's fine. And so in use case diagrams, again, this is a little idiosyncrasy of Integrity Modeler. It doesn't give you the frame. What a pain. So you can make your own frame. That's what you do here. You create one frame here, and then you just drop the name. Did you catch that? So you just grab this. This was created when I created the diagram under context. So I just drag that and drop it on there. Okay. And I'm going to have an actor. Okay. This is Bob. Hello, Bob. Okay, and I'm going to have another block here, rectangle, which is now going to be my system of interest. So what is my system of interest? I'm going to right click on here and I'm going to go to new and I'm going to create a new block representing my system. Because my system is a block. All my things are blocks. So this is how a block shows up on a use case diagram. So if anybody asks you, are there any blocks in the use case? Yeah, it's like the system of interest. So here you go to, not use cases, we'll go to structure, create a block. Okay, and this is now my big tank. Okay, and I'm going to drag this onto this block. It's going to turn it red. Okay, so that's halfway there. So I'll come down here to view options. And I think I go to style, let's see, frame box. Let's see, I was forgetting here. I think I go to default. There you go to default. Okay, so this is denoting my system of interest, the tank, and here's Bob. And so I'm going to I can create a use case using this guy here, or I can create use cases right here within the folder. So you can create almost anything within the package, including the package itself. You can create diagrams, block. I've never done an object diagram, but package diagrams, requirement sequence, a text diagram. Text diagrams are cool. You create those and you can just dump text in there. You can do all your justification in a text diagram. So if you want to do your purpose and all that stuff in a text diagram, have at it. I do that all the time, use case. But you notice it doesn't have an activity diagram, just FYI. To create an activity diagram, you first have to go into behavior and create an activity. Then you can create the activity diagram. So I'll show you that in a few minutes. Okay, so where are we going with this? We're creating, so I can also create SysML, go to use cases. I can either create another use case diagram or use case. So I could create a use case here. And it's use case 1. So the tank, what do I want the tank to do? Use tank. Use tank. Which could be a host of many things, right? How am I going to use the tank? Okay, and so you can put more details in there later. So here's my use tank use case. And I'm going to use this connector interactions. This is a pretty basic one. It's the most lowest level one. Just means, hey, these two things are related somehow. It's the lowest form of recognition. Okay, so I've got that. And then you could create another, so this is like the main scenario. Okay, there might be another scenario. Let's see, I'm going to come down here. And instead of use tank, I'm going to say fix tank. Okay. And gee, I'm getting crowded here already. So let's see. I can use this button to zoom out just a hair. And I give myself some more real estate. Whoops, too much. I want to keep these guys all in there. And I can zoom out just a tad more too. Okay, so here's fix tank. And so this isn't a part of it, but it's sort of related. It might break down. So let's make this an extend flow. This is an extension, not an include. So it goes that way, okay? Oh, and there's another guy called a mechanic. So he's not the primary actor, but he's important to fixing the tank, okay? So I'm gonna put him down here. Okay, so, and I can always add more elaboration, obviously create more use cases, but this is just kind of my starting process. And now the other question is, when do you use includes? Because you're not supposed to use includes just to make a list of all the things it does. Like obviously you can start the tank, you can drive the tank, you can shoot the tank, you could load the tank, all these different activities you'd use the tank for. Run over trees, you know, use case. So normally you want to look for things that can be reused. To make it a separate use case, you have to usually make a case that this is a use case which is used by several other different use cases, okay? We say, oh, gee, why am I doing this? Like, I'm starting the tank in 4 of these scenarios, okay? Well, then just make use of that an extended one. So anyway, so let's just start off simple here. And okay, so that's our basic use case. So let's see about making an activity diagram first. This is kind of the next big thing since we talked about this. I can right click on this one. I can say new activity. Okay, you notice nothing happened on the picture. Well, guess what? What happened was it created the activity underneath use tank over here. So if you open this up, voila, there's activity 1. Okay, so this would normally have the same name. Now you can use different naming conventions. I'm just going to use that one with the lowercase in the front and capital in the middle. Okay, and now I'm going to explain that by now doing an activity diagram. So I'm just doing this off all the top of my head, so forgive me. Right click on the activity, and explain this in the Piazza. So you right click here and you say new activity diagram. See? So when I'm saying, where's the activity diagram? Well, it's right here when you click on that one. But you have to click on this to create the activity diagram. Okay, so there's use tank. Now I do not like that frame. So this is one of the first things I always fix. So this frame is still, because this is still a throwback from UML. So I go down here to view options, show as frame. See, there it's just not consistent, but voila, now it did it. Okay. So let's create a start node. It's always a good place to start. Where's my start? Oh, okay, here's initial, here's my final, and here's my semi-final, the flow final node versus the activity final node. So we'll start. Now, which way should we go? Let's go this way, just because I seem to have a lot of room this way. I'm showing my flexibility here. And now you have these choices of what kind of activity I want. So this opaque action, and I defined opaque pretty specifically in the text, usually as being some kind of a calculation related. But in Modeler, they also use this as their general obvious action, okay? So you click on here and you notice all these things are being created now underneath the activity, okay? Even the opaque action. So I could come over here and say, okay, what is this first action for use the tank? So let's say it's startup. Okay. And then there's maybe another activity of drive. Okay, I'm using very simple, obviously, logic here. And maybe I want to shoot something. Okay. But I want to go to a more detailed diagram. So I want to create a new, basically, activity. And I'm going to put it, so here's, but it's going to still be under this use case, use tank. So I could click on here and say new activity. And I could say, shoot the gun. Okay. And I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to create a new activity. Shoot the gun. And I'm going to fix this one again because just get it Show its frame. Okay, so, and I'm not going to really put anything in here yet. I'm just going to start some work here. And what kind of flow is this? This going to be an object or a control flow between these two? Okay. So let me go back to my other statement. Now I'm going to come over here and use call behavior. And it says here you can create a new one right here. So you could do that. But I already created it. So I'm going to either look under all activities or package hierarchy. Let's look under package hierarchy under tank context. Let's see. Where is my activity? Tell me I'm looking in the right place. Select object. Select an object from the list below. So it should be under use tank. Under objects. Let's see here. Okay, so we created an activity called use tank and one shoot tank. So this is all under use tank, use case. So when you go under package hierarchy, go to my tank, and if I click on use tank, these two options show here. So once it shows up over here, that means it can be selected. So I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to say OK. Okay, so that created my call behavior. So now all I have to do is link this to this, control flow. I'm just going to use control flow between startup and drive. And then from driving, I'm going to shoot the gun. Now, obviously, there could be some logic in here of am I automatically to shoot, or I'm going to maybe look for targets, or that kind of stuff. So there's obviously more stuff that would happen in between, but for our case, we're going to do it that way. Select this, make it a little bigger, and let's say we're done. We're going to RTB, return to base, and we're going to end. We're going to put in our terminal node. Okay, so it doesn't. So this is a good scenario. It's one path between driving, shooting the gun, returning to base. So you could call that a scenario. And then you could have, I could add later on, this right here, this is your activity partitions right here. So if I click on that and I click in here, I create this one. So this could be the tank operation or something. So the partition is what is doing what. So let's say this is, so there's going to be two parts. This is going to be the tank. Okay, doing this operation. I also could bind this or allocate the actual block, I believe, by just dropping it on it. Okay. Now I've actually linked this thing here to the tank. It's his full name, tank. Okay. And then if you right click on this under view options again, you can show linked item names. You can show type. Let's see what this all looks like here. So you can see that it says the tank, which is like the variable name, and it's the tank. So I've actually linked that to this swim lane. So all these activities that I'm saying are happening on the tank. Now, I could add another swim lane for the driver by clicking maybe in here. Now, that's underneath it, okay? So I don't want to do that. I want this next to it. So sometimes you just hit the undo key. You do it again until you get it in the right place. So see, if you click out here, it just creates another partition. Okay, so let's say this is the driver, or Bob the driver. But I want it to be sort of next to it. I want these kind of like joined. I don't want it underneath it. So a lot of times you're trying to figure out how to get these right. Now look at that. So that time I got it on the diamond, except unfortunately, all these guys need to go on your tank. Okay, so let's say that this is Bob doing startup procedures. And I would normally do it like this. And maybe return to base is what Bob's doing. Okay, so that's how you can add swim lanes. Okay, so your show lanes. Now you can break the tank down into the drive, into the gun, in its subsystems, electrical. What other functional things? Maybe radio communications. That's really big for tanks. They got to talk to other tanks and talk to the tank commander. So there's all kinds of different things you can do to, because you're explaining your use case. Just think of it that way. You're explaining what's going on in here. And this narrative also can be put in here in this text area down here, where you have descriptions, you got intent, you got preconditions, post-conditions. So you can document all that stuff here. And also the advantage here, I'm almost done here, guys. The advantage of doing it this way is you can do a report later on of your model, and all these text files and this text will print out on these reports, okay? We'll talk more about getting the information out. So, okay, real quick here, let's go back to the use case. Let's say fix tank. I do a right click on here, and I say new, and I want to do, let's see, state machine we're going to do next week. Let's do a sequence diagram. Okay, so here's fixed tank, and I'm going to have Bob again. He's going to be my main actor. Oh no, wait. I guess the mechanic is the main actor here. Drop that bad guy there, mechanic. Okay, gives you the whole 9 yards on the name. Okay, now, so here's the name, here's the description. So the sequence diagrams in Integrity Modeler have a text area, which actually makes it very verbose in the sense that you can put in, you've got a place to put what's actually happening. So I think it's pretty good. The lifelines of usually actors I put on this side. I guess you notice this thing doesn't allow you to move it. It shouldn't go past that system. So it's kind of set up this way. These are your system boundaries, just like you used a box before in the other diagram. This is your system boundary, both kind of left side, right side, okay? So this is where your system activities are gonna happen. So you need a lifeline for the tank, right? Because you gotta fix the tank. Should be able to just drop that bad boy right there, okay? So this is now an instance of the tank. This is not a block. It's showing this is one version of the tank. So just think of this. So this is an activity, an event that's happening on in here. So here's my lifelines that I'm going to bounce these two things together. I could even create a new block. Let's say up here, I want to say, oh, I forgot about the target. So you can come up here. So here's instance. If I can do that over here. And okay, that created an instance of the same thing. So I don't want that. I could come over here. Let's see, what else can we do here? Interface device, subsystem. Here's a thing called subsystem. Now that implies that that's a subsystem of the tank. So I don't like that. I want to do the target. So this is how I would do it. I would come over here in context, right click, and create a new block. That's really kind of what I'm looking for, SysML structure block. And I'm just going to call this target. This is not the store target. I just want to clarify that. Okay. Now I'm going to put it outside the system, way out here. So this is the system line boundary. Okay, so here's target. And we're going to, of course, this is maintenance, so, you know, we don't really need a target for maintenance, but I just got to throw it out there. So, okay, how to do that. So maybe you'd put that in driving sequence diagram. You know, obviously you want to drive to near the target area or something like that. So, okay, so then you come over here and let's start creating some sequences. So this is the sequences. Here's selection, outcome. So some of these names are kind of not quite what we talked about. Iteration is a loop. Here's parallel. Here's one. Also parallel. And break. Okay, so let's just first do sequence. Okay, so this is now like a message line. So you could say, what's the mechanic going to do? He's going to, I don't know, he's going to view the tank. He's going to view the tank. And so let's say he's doing, let's say an operation. So you could do operations in here. Let's just call this an event. We come over to him and we go over to the tank. Okay, and I'm going to say, so this, you could have some predefined, select the object to list, and search for a few characters, blah, blah, blah. So you can actually do a search. I'm just going to say new event. I'm just going to say view. Okay. And then this does have a reply. And see, reply is normally just for synchronous. So this is asynchronous here. So I'm just going to do another event back. I should be able to that's not. Oh, I know. You got to put a thing in here first. So you have to define it first. So if you view the tank and then you see problem or something, and I'm going to come back here. I wonder if reply will work now. Okay, so this is what you're looking for. You're looking for the cursor to change. I'm going to bring that over here. And I'm going to say new. And I'm just going to say problem. Okay, so I did a reply, which I'm implying that this is a synchronous event. You can't go farther with this until you see the problem. So you're going to keep doing this. Okay, well, I think that's about all I'm going to cover now for this. There are a few more things we can do and play around with it. So go ahead and I would say play around with maybe doing a loop. You can create loops. You can create. So what you really want to do is focus on in this tool, create the events first, these descriptions, and then show how they're going to interact. Okay. So guys, that's all I have for today. And we will meet at 7 o'clock next Wednesday. Okay, not 6 o'clock, so 7 o'clock. Okay, I hope that's clear as mud. So, okay, everybody, talk to you later. Bye.